Hi, Aquarius. The energy coming through already feels incredibly strong, and honestly, the message feels pretty clear. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to chase answers. Because something is happening behind the scenes. And for many of you, someone is finally being forced to look at the truth they've been avoiding. Okay. I keep getting this feeling that the more you've pulled your energy back, the louder your absence has become. This person may have thought they had more time. They may have believed you would always be there, always understand, always give them another chance to make things right. But lately something feels different, and they're noticing it. They're noticing your silence. They're noticing your distance. They're noticing the space where your energy used to be. And honestly, I don't think they were prepared for how much that would affect them. Because while you've been focusing on yourself, trying to find your own peace, this person seems to be facing thoughts and emotions they can no longer push away. Something is shifting. Someone is starting to realize the impact of their choices. And the deeper we go into this reading, the more it feels like regret is becoming impossible for them to ignore. And the first card I'm noticing here is the Nine of Swords card. Honestly, this person doesn't look okay to me. They may be telling everyone around them that they're fine. They may be showing up to work, handling responsibilities, going through their normal routines, pretending life is moving forward the way it's supposed to. But underneath all of that, there's something unraveling. Because Aquarius, I keep feeling like your absence has become impossible for them to ignore. Not because you're chasing them, not because you're demanding answers, but because you're not. Your silence has created space, and in that space, they can finally hear their own thoughts. The problem is, they don't like what they're hearing. I feel this person replaying conversations over and over again, thinking about things they should have said, thinking about things they never should have done, wondering how everything got to this point. And every time they try to distract themselves, somehow their mind circles right back to you. It's exhausting, it's frustrating, and honestly, I don't think they expected to miss you this much. Okay, the Moon card is showing up right beside it, and wow, this feels, because there are feelings here that they've been hiding for a very long time. Not just from you, from themselves. I keep hearing someone say, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I needed space. I thought I needed time. But now they're questioning everything. The further away this connection gets, the harder it becomes for them to understand why they still feel so attached to it. Why certain memories still hit them out of nowhere. Why certain songs suddenly remind them of you. Why they keep reaching for their phone before realizing there's no message there. You know, sometimes people don't fully understand what they have until life becomes quiet enough for them to feel the difference. And that's exactly what this feels like. Because I don't see someone forgetting Aquarius. I see someone being reminded of Aquarius in 100 different ways throughout the day. Little things, random things, unexpected things, the kind of things that catch you off guard when you're least prepared. And then we have the Six of Cups card. Honestly, this is where the energy becomes even softer. Because beneath the regret, beneath the confusion, beneath all the questions they're carrying, there's affection. There are memories they keep returning to, moments they once took for granted that now seem incredibly valuable. I keep seeing someone remembering your laugh, the way you spoke, the way you understood them, the way they could be themselves around you without having to perform or pretend. And the strange thing is, the memories don't seem to be fading. They seem to be getting stronger, almost as if distance is giving them a different perspective. They're beginning to realize that what they lost wasn't just a person, it was a feeling, a sense of comfort, a sense of connection, something they assumed would always be there. And now, they're sitting with the weight of that realization, because the more they think about you, the more they realize how much of their heart is still living in places that remind them of Aquarius. And honestly, I don't think they've figured out what to do with that yet. Okay. The energy shifts the moment these cards hit the table, because the Judgment card doesn't feel quiet at all. It feels like something this person can no longer avoid. And honestly, Aquarius, I don't think this realization happened because they suddenly woke up one morning and decided to look inward. No. This feels like someone around them held up a mirror. Someone said something. Someone challenged them. Someone asked a question they weren't prepared to answer. You know, I keep hearing a conversation, not necessarily a dramatic argument, not necessarily someone yelling, just one of those moments where the truth lands so hard that it echoes long after the conversation is over. And whatever was said, it stuck. Because for the first time, this person couldn't immediately defend themselves. They couldn't explain it away. They couldn't blame circumstances. They couldn't point at someone else. The excuses started falling apart. Wow, The Justice card is sitting here, and the energy feels incredibly uncomfortable for them. Not because someone is punishing them, but because they're beginning to see their own actions from a different perspective. I keep feeling this moment where they're replaying events in their mind and suddenly seeing details they never paid attention to before. The look on your face, the silence after certain conversations, the times you were trying to be understood while they were too focused on protecting themselves. And now, those memories don't feel the same anymore. What once felt justified now feels difficult to explain. What once felt reasonable now feels heavy, because they're beginning to realize that intentions don't erase consequences. Honestly, I think this person spent a long time believing they had valid reasons for what they did. But reasons and regret are two very different things. And now regret is starting to speak louder. The Queen of Swords card immediately catches my attention, because this energy feels connected to truth, sharp truth, clear truth, truth that cuts through denial. For some of you, this may literally be another person speaking honestly to them, a friend, a family member, someone who sees through the story they've been telling themselves. For others, it feels like their own conscience finally finding a voice. Either way, they're hearing things they don't necessarily want to hear. Questions like, why did you push them away? Why didn't you tell them the truth? Why did you expect them to keep understanding everything while giving so little in return? And the uncomfortable part is, they don't have good answers. Not anymore. The old explanations aren't working. The walls aren't working. The emotional distance isn't working. Because every road seems to lead back to the same realization. They hurt someone who genuinely cared. And the deeper that realization settles in, the harder it becomes to carry. I keep feeling this strange mixture of shame and sadness, not because they suddenly see themselves as a bad person, but because they're realizing they were capable of making choices that caused pain. And that's a difficult thing to sit with, especially when the person they hurt is someone they still think about every day. Okay, this feels important, because I'm not seeing someone who has everything figured out. I'm seeing someone who is standing in the middle of a personal reckoning, someone who is finally looking at parts of themselves they've spent a very long time avoiding. And the more honest they become with themselves, the more one question keeps returning to the surface. If Aquarius knew everything I'm realizing now, would they ever want to hear from me again? The energy softens here, but somehow it feels even more emotional. Because the Hangman card is showing up, and honestly, this feels like someone seeing the same story from a completely different angle for the first time. You know, for a long time, I think this person was focused on what they were feeling, what they needed, what they were afraid of, what they thought was happening. Everything was filtered through their own perspective. But something has changed, and now they're beginning to look at the connection through your eyes. Wow, that isn't easy, because once you start doing that, certain memories hit differently, certain decisions hit differently, certain words hit differently. I keep feeling this person sitting alone somewhere, replaying old moments, and suddenly realizing there was so much they didn't understand back then. There were times Aquarius wasn't asking for perfection. There were times Aquarius wasn't asking for promises. There were times Aquarius simply wanted honesty, wanted openness, wanted to know what was real. And somehow at the time, this person couldn't give that. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they were confused. Maybe they thought avoiding difficult conversations would somehow protect everyone involved. But now, they're beginning to understand that silence has consequences too. The Five of Cups card is sitting right beside it. And honestly, this feels heavy, because regret looks very different when you finally understand the impact of your actions. Before, regret is an idea. Now it feels personal. Now it feels real. I keep hearing someone say, I didn't realize it hurt them that much. I didn't realize they were carrying all of that alone. I didn't realize how long they were trying to hold us together. And Aquarius, I think that's one of the hardest parts for this person. Realizing that while they were pulling away, questioning things, avoiding things, trying to protect themselves, you were quietly carrying the weight of everything. Not forever, not endlessly, but for much longer than they understood. Okay, this is interesting. Because I'm also picking up on a deeper realization. They're beginning to understand why you stopped reaching, why you stopped explaining, why you stopped trying to convince them. And honestly, I don't think they saw it clearly before. At one point, they may have told themselves a story that Aquarius didn't care, a story that Aquarius moved on easily, a story that Aquarius became cold. But now they're beginning to see something different. They're realizing that distance wasn't created because you didn't care. Distance was created because it became painful. Because there comes a point where a person cannot keep pouring into a connection that isn't being met halfway. And wow, That realization feels like it's hitting hard. The Temperance card is appearing now, and the energy around it feels quieter, more reflective, less defensive. Because I don't see someone trying to justify themselves anymore. I see someone trying to understand, trying to make sense of things, trying to figure out how they missed what was right in front of them. And honestly, the more they understand your side of the story, the more compassion they're developing, not just for you, for the entire situation. They're starting to see the moments where both of you were hurting in different ways. The moments where misunderstandings grew larger than they should have. The moments where fears made decisions that love never would have made. And this emotional awakening feels very real. Not dramatic, not loud, not something they're posting online or talking about with everyone around them. It feels private. The kind of realization that happens when nobody else is watching. The kind that changes something inside of a person. Because the truth is, they're beginning to understand why you stepped back. They're beginning to understand why your heart needed space. And the more clearly they see that, the more one difficult question keeps lingering in the back of their mind. What if Aquarius gave everything they could, and I was the one who couldn't see it? Wow. This energy changes the moment these cards appear. Because now I'm not just seeing regret, I'm seeing fear. And honestly, Aquarius, I don't think this person is afraid of their feelings anymore. I think they're afraid of time. They're afraid of what may have happened while they were busy figuring themselves out. The Four of Cups card immediately catches my attention. And what I keep hearing is, what if I waited too long? You know, sometimes people assume they'll get another chance. Not because they're arrogant, not because they don't care, but because they can't imagine a reality where someone they love actually stops waiting for them. And that's what feels so unsettling here. Because this person is beginning to understand that life doesn't stay frozen. People grow, people heal, people move forward, and for the first time, they're realizing that Aquarius may have done exactly that. Okay, I keep seeing them imagining different scenarios. What if you're talking to someone new? What if you're finally happy? What if you've built a life that no longer has a place for them in it? And honestly, those thoughts seem to be haunting them. Not because they don't want you to be happy, but because they suddenly understand they may not be part of that happiness. That's a very different realization. The Eight of Cups card is sitting here, and wow, this feels emotional. Because I think this person used to believe they were the one walking away. They believed they were the one creating distance. They believed they were the one deciding how much access they wanted to give this connection. But now, they're starting to wonder if you've emotionally stepped beyond the place where they left you. And that's difficult for them. Because Aquarius isn't someone who opens their heart over and over again without limits. I feel like deep down they know that. They know your heart is generous. They know your heart is understanding. But they also know there comes a point where you choose yourself. There comes a point where you stop knocking on closed doors. There comes a point where your energy begins moving somewhere else. And honestly, I think they're terrified that point may have already arrived. You know, I keep seeing this person checking for signs, looking for clues, trying to figure out where they stand without directly asking. They wonder if you've changed. They wonder if you still think about them. They wonder if they even cross your mind anymore. And every time they don't have an answer, their imagination fills in the blanks. Most of those imagined answers aren't making them feel any better. Because regret has a way of convincing people they've already lost everything. Okay, the Star card is showing up now, and wow, the energy here feels so different. Because when this person thinks about you, Aquarius, they don't just think about the connection. They think about who you are. They think about the way your energy made them feel. The way you brought light into situations that felt dark. The way you encouraged them to become more honest with themselves. The way you seemed to see potential in them even when they couldn't see it. And honestly, that memory feels bigger now than it ever did before. Because distance has given them perspective. They're starting to understand that not everyone leaves a lasting imprint on someone's heart. Not everyone becomes the person you compare everyone else to. Not everyone stays with you long after the conversations end. But somehow, you do. And that's why this fear keeps growing. Because the more they recognize your value, the more they recognize what they could lose. I keep hearing someone quietly asking themselves, what if Aquarius finally found the peace they were looking for? What if they're no longer waiting? What if the chapter I thought I could return to has already turned the page? And honestly, I don't think they have an answer for that yet. I think they're still standing there, wondering whether they're looking at a door that might still be open, or one that has already closed without them realizing it. Honestly, the energy feels very different now, because fear can only keep someone frozen for so long before it forces them to make a choice. And what I'm seeing here isn't someone running anymore. It's someone slowly turning around and looking directly at the things they've spent a long time avoiding. The death card is the first thing that catches my attention, and wow, this feels incredibly personal, not dramatic, not sudden. Not like a switch being flipped overnight. This feels like the slow realization that certain versions of ourselves can only take us so far. I keep feeling this person recognizing patterns, the way they shut down when emotions became too intense, the way they pulled away when vulnerability was required, the way they convinced themselves that keeping control was safer than opening their heart. And honestly, I don't think those habits are bringing them comfort anymore. Because every time they look back at this connection, they see where those old patterns led them. They see the distance. They see the silence. They see the consequences. And for perhaps the first time, they aren't blaming circumstances. They're looking inward. There's a big difference between regretting what happened and actually changing. A lot of people feel regret. Not everyone allows that regret to transform them. But that's what feels different here. I keep getting the sense that this person is becoming increasingly uncomfortable with the version of themselves that made those choices. The version that hid. The version that avoided. The version that expected understanding while offering very little clarity in return. And the more awareness they gain, the less they want to remain that person. Okay. The strength card is showing up now, and honestly, Aquarius, this doesn't feel like physical strength at all. This feels like emotional courage, the kind of courage they didn't always have before. Because I'm seeing someone learning how to sit with difficult emotions instead of escaping them, learning how to acknowledge mistakes instead of defending them, learning how to hear uncomfortable truths without immediately building walls. And wow, that process doesn't feel easy. There are moments where they still want to retreat. Moments where they still question themselves. Moments where shame tells them they're too late or that they've already ruined everything. But each time that voice appears, I feel them choosing differently, little by little, step by step. They're beginning to understand that growth isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest. And honesty is something this person seems to be craving now more than ever. Because the truth is, they're tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of carrying masks. Tired of telling themselves stories that no longer feel true. The King of Pentacles card is appearing here, and I have to say, this energy feels grounded, more mature, more stable. Not because they've arrived at some final destination, but because they're finally starting to think beyond their immediate fears. They're asking different questions now. Not how do I protect myself, but how do I become someone trustworthy? Not what can I get from this connection, but what can I genuinely contribute? And honestly, that shift feels significant. Because Aquarius, I keep hearing this person thinking about what it would actually mean to show up differently, to keep their word, to communicate clearly, to stop disappearing when things become uncomfortable, to build something instead of constantly questioning whether they should. And I think that's where a lot of this internal work is happening, not around whether they care, not around whether the feelings are real. Those answers seem much clearer to them now. The real question they're wrestling with is whether they can become the person they wish they had been from the beginning. Because the more they reflect on everything that's happened, the more they realize that loving someone isn't just about feelings. It's also about consistency, responsibility, presence, and wow. I think they're beginning to understand that in a way they never fully understood before, which is why I keep seeing them standing at the edge of something new. Not quite where they want to be yet. Not fully finished with the lessons they're learning, but no longer willing to remain who they used to be. And the deeper this transformation goes, the more one thought keeps quietly returning to their heart. If I were given another chance someday, would I finally know how to love Aquarius the way they deserved all along? The energy feels incredibly emotional here. Not dramatic, not rushed, just honest. And honestly, Aquarius, I think that's what makes this part feel so powerful. Because for the first time in this reading, I'm not seeing someone hiding behind fear. I'm not seeing someone trying to justify the past. I'm not seeing someone searching for excuses. I'm seeing someone who simply wishes they could tell you the truth. The Ace of Cups card is the first thing that appears, and wow, this feels like a heart that has been carrying words for a very long time. Words that never came out. Words that got swallowed by pride, by fear, by uncertainty, by timing. And now those words seem to be sitting right beneath the surface. I keep hearing, I should have told you sooner. I should have been honest. I should have let you know what was really happening inside of me. Because one thing feels very clear here. No matter how much distance exists between the two of you, this person never truly forgot you. Life may have moved forward. Days may have passed. Situations may have changed, but whenever they tried to close the chapter completely, something inside them kept returning to your memory. Not because they forced it, not because they wanted to stay stuck, but because some connections leave an imprint that refuses to disappear. Okay, the Two of Cups card is showing up now, and honestly, the energy feels softer than anything we've seen so far. Because when this person thinks about Aquarius, they aren't focusing on conflict anymore. They're not focusing on mistakes. They're not focusing on who was right or wrong. They're remembering the connection itself. The feeling of being understood, the feeling of being seen, the feeling of being able to drop their guard and simply exist. You know, I think that's part of what hurts so much. Because people often assume they miss a person. Sometimes what they miss most is how that person made them feel about themselves. And when I look at this energy, I see someone remembering a version of themselves that felt more open, more hopeful, more alive. A version of themselves that existed when Aquarius was close. Wow, the Judgment card appears again, and this feels important, because this isn't just about missing you. This is about accountability. This is about someone looking directly at the past and saying, I understand now, not understanding everything, not claiming to have all the answers, but understanding enough to recognize where they fell short. I keep hearing an apology that sounds very simple, not perfect, just real. Something like, I'm sorry for the confusion. I'm sorry for the distance. I'm sorry for the times I made you question your worth when the truth had nothing to do with your worth at all. And honestly, that apology feels genuine, because it isn't asking for sympathy. It isn't demanding forgiveness. It's simply acknowledging pain. The Lover's card is the final card on the table, and wow, the energy here feels deeply sincere. Because this person isn't looking at love the same way they used to. They're beginning to understand that love is not just a feeling, it's a choice to communicate, a choice to be present, a choice to show up consistently even when things become uncomfortable. And I think that's part of the lesson they've been learning throughout this entire journey. Not how to feel, but how to stay. Not how to desire, but how to build. Not how to dream about a connection, but how to honor one. And if they could sit across from Aquarius right now, I don't think they would come with grand promises. I don't think they would try to impress you. I think they would simply want the chance to be honest, to tell you what they never said, to show you who they're becoming, to let their actions carry the weight their words once couldn't. Because after everything they've reflected on, after every sleepless night, every realization, every uncomfortable truth, the feeling I keep getting is surprisingly simple. This person doesn't wish they had met you later. They don't wish they had never met you. They just wish they had understood sooner what your presence truly meant to their life. Okay, that's all I'm seeing for this reading today. And honestly, the strongest thing I'm taking away from these cards isn't regret, it's awareness. It's someone beginning to understand lessons they couldn't see before. Whether that leads to a conversation, an apology, or simply personal growth is something only time can reveal. But what feels important is that you're no longer carrying the responsibility of figuring everything out for them. Your focus is your healing, your peace, your future. Thank you so much for being here and sharing the space with me. I never take your time or your energy for granted. If this message resonated, don't forget to trust your own intuition above everything else. Sending you so much love, Aquarius, and I'll see you in the next reading. Take care.